Now, we talked previously about how the Russian dead hand system ends the human race, and luckily the Russians did it of their own free will, so the entire Russian race has suicided, because we know there is a timeline where the dead hand mechanism has already wiped out the human race, and with quantum computers you can simply link up with them if you're the Psylord, and import from that timeline the death of humanity from the Russian filth and their dead hand mechanism, where they detonate all their nuclear weapons. If a nuke weapon goes off in Russia, and we know that there are literally hundreds of nuclear weapons in the new Soviet Union, aka the Russian Federation, aka we don't invade countries, we just have special military operations, aka the special Armageddon operation, which we call the dead hand mechanism. Which wipes out the human race. So the human race has already been wiped out in every single timeline by the Russian filth and the dead hand mechanism, because of all the buried nukes that were imported into Russia, or simply bought in Russia under Yeltsin, and General Lebed talked about it and got assassinated in his helicopter for it. So this is the only timeline where the new Soviet Union, the Russian filth, still exists. And you've got to ask why. Why would someone who despises Russians like myself, well, they sent an army of Russians to do me in and kill me, and I've simply zero-sum gamed them, so all Russians die for me. That's why the entire Russian race is soulless. And in Omega Hell, and if you have my MP3s, you'll see the seed core of Omega Hell is that Russian hospital number 23, where everyone and anybody, including aliens, are tortured till they go mad, and then tortured to the new level again and again, all explained in the MP3s. You must have wondered why the seed core of that is this Russian hospital number 23. Well, we've already got 200,000 Russians killed by the Ukrainians, and we've got the entire human race killed by the Russians with the dead hand mechanism, and this is the only timeline where humanity still exists. So we see that suicide is vital, because with suicide you give up your light of your own free will. You don't have to be tortured by demons to give it up. You don't have to be given a Faustian bargain. You simply go, yeah, I'm giving up my source light, I'm giving myself. But of course that source light has to come somewhere, and the Russian filth got in the zero-sum game with the Psylord by sending an army of Russians that were trying to kill me, instead of which all Russians have been desouled, and the death force from the death of all humanity imported to the aliens has given me the death force to make all of my stuff 100% real. So you need a death force vampire, special limited edition, if you need to make all of your psi, occult, god tech 100% sure. So if you want to become a multi-billionaire, you need this service, so that the 200,000 dead Russians and the human race dead, and then me exporting it to the universe, multiverse, megaverse to make everything real for that psi, occult, god tech operation is made real by the death force. You need to have a death force vampire. And similarly, if you wish to feed your soul to become a super soul, to get into the penultimate grail state, you then need to be a soul force feeding vampire. We've already got 200 Russian souls, and all of the human race via the Russians who died with their dead hand mechanism, and the aliens all feeding me, and that light went back to 86 to me, and then I uploaded it to the source back in 86, and the last vestige of this operation was de-lighting, getting rid of the light in my physical body, so that killing me and trying to eat my flesh, which we'll explain in later parts of my dissertation, has no effect on stealing light from the source. So my physical body now has no light within it, and all the light has been returned to the source. So we're in a new phase of observation, which is new source, where it's all based on the IOU. So the grail state, which was stealing the source, how do you do that? Well, you simply have hatred of good, love of evil, exported the interdimensional realms into the Abaddon cages, the low frequency light from the source, Higgs field, whatever you want to call it, the stuff that makes things real, is then put into the material world from the Abaddon cages of the tortured souls via the Freemasonic grid and the core processor, which is a Grail stone, and all the Grail patterns which you can buy and will not be on the channel because, of course, scum like Jeremiah Schwartzy boy, the thief who was put there by the CIA to try and fuck me over, have no access to any of the real content of what I'm talking about, because what I put on YouTube is only for people who've actually purchased content. So we're going into the purchased content phase of the business. So if you've got the MP3s, you can use that hatred from the MP3s to feed off the souls in the Abaddon cages, and the Grail state, which pointed up as still the source has been reversed. So you need an Amalek service, or if you want to become one of the lieutenants of the God Emperor, you need an Edomic Kings or Queens service. And we'll explain how that fits into the Forsaken, who have now been disempowered by me taking all the light from the source away. And we go next into how in this last vestige, this last timeline, this last soulless, lightless pathway of the human race that has not yet been massacred by the Russian filth and the dead hand mechanism, what the God Emperor has driven all of humanity into. Basically, you're in the zone, you're all in there, and there are two decisions to make for you.
That changed everything, a phenomenon that shattered classical physics. In the 17th century, Isaac Newton claimed that light was made of tiny corpuscles, projectiles of particles traveling in a straight line. But in Holland, another genius thought differently. Christian Huygens imagined light as a wave, spreading like sound in the air or like ripples on water. The nature of light was in a dilemma. Is it a wave or a particle? There was no consensus until in 1801 Thomas Young performed an experiment. With just 2 slits in a piece of cardboard and a beam of light, he changed everything. If we throw marbles at a wall with 2 openings, 2 bands appear. All logical. Now, let's try with waves. 2 slits and an interference pattern emerges with multiple bands created by waves crossing, reinforcing, or canceling each other out. When Young made light pass through 2 slits, he didn't see 2 simple bands. He saw the indisputable proof that light is a wave. 100 years later, Max Planck proposed that energy is emitted in tiny discrete units, quanta. And in 1905, Albert Einstein, while explaining the photoelectric effect, showed that light also behaves like a flow of particles striking electrons, photons. Classical physics was crumbling. Duality was inevitable. Light was both a wave and a particle at the same time. But physicists wanted to go further. They took the experiment into the quantum realm with the smallest particles of matter. They fired electrons one by one through 2 slits. They expected 2 bands like with the marbles. But no, an interference pattern appeared. Tiny pieces of matter forming a pattern like with waves. The conclusion was clear. Each electron left as a particle became a wave, passed through both slits, interfered with itself, and struck the screen. Which meant that the electron went through 1 slit and through the other, through both, and through none. All those possibilities superposed at once. Bewildered, physicists tried to measure it. They placed a device to observe which slit each electron passed through, and the unexpected happened. The interference pattern vanished. The electron drew 2 bands, like a simple marble. The mere act of measuring changed the result. The electron behaved differently, as if it were aware it was being observed. From then on, science ventured into the enigmatic quantum world. So what is matter then? A handful of tiny particles? Mysterious waves? Or something that only exists when we observe it?
We've got this war with Iran. Which is going to produce World War III, as in the Albert Pike. I haven't reiterated the Albert Pike and go back on previous videos. And you've got all of these fuckwits on YouTube talking about World War III. So let's look at what's happening. I did the reverse of the Rothschild curse on me, which was crushing me like a flea, and my ramblings had no effect on reality. And we've had Iris Goldsmith, the inceptor of the entrance into Universe B of the Clipothic realm, where Amalek and the kings of Edom reside, and to open up the Clipothic doorway in death to Amalek and release Amalek, we need the inverse of a Neo, the inverse of a Jesus. So why not put Jesus in Charlie Kirk? So Jesus' second coming is in Charlie Kirk, and he gets shot in the throat, which is the position of Dat in the Kabbalistic tree. And then we lower his frequency totally to the Clipothic realm by importing Ian Huntley, who got crushed like a flea and was a girl killer, where the Goldsmiths and Rothschilds would have had me killed in a British jail. That's why they tried the drug fit up, and instead of me dying, Ian Huntley was sacrificed by the Rothschild royal family to try and avert the curse. And of course that's why the 170 whatever Iranian schoolgirls were fried with the double strike on their school to avert the reversal of the curse, which I completed in Hong Kong via the Freemasonic system. So you can see that World War III is the Rothschild curse reversed on the Rothschild empire. So where are the wars going on? Well, Ukraine. Who runs the entire finances of Ukraine, cameraman?
The Rothschilds.
And the special military operation, which is a special Armageddon operation, special rape operation, special murder operation, special steal your land operation, an obfuscation, mendacity at the highest level. Who owns all of Russia via the Jewish oligarchs funded by the so-called Rothschild Institute under Yeltsin, his daughter, Jewish, and Boris Berezovsky, the conduit to the Rothschilds? Who owns Russia?
The Rothschilds.
And did Hannah Rothschild say that the Rothschilds give the go-ahead for all wars? Yes or no, cameraman?
Yes.
Exactly. Now, who set up the State of Israel?
The Rothschilds.
Exactly. Now, who protected the mad Ayatollah, the satanic filth fuckwit in Paris, and then imported him, like Lenin, into Russia? Who imported the former Ayatollah from Paris to take over after the Shah had been kicked out?
The Rothschilds.
The Rothschilds. So, when the curse is reversed, where would the wars break out?
In those countries.
Exactly. Where have they broken out?
In those countries.
So all of you on YouTube who are barking up the wrong tree, everything is a cult. You live in an occult world, and World War III is simply the Rothschilds picking on Kalki, that's one of my aspects, and saying they curse me, and me reversing the curse, and the curse being inflated to a global level. So now we have the Rothschild powered curse. Remember, the Rothschilds are the avatar of the Elohim, all Elohim in Omega Hell. So the Rothschilds are the portal to Omega Hell, unleashing Omega Hell across the planet. And of course the alien filth, who I despise. I can't stand Iranians or Russians, but aliens are off the charts in my level of despisement. Now, we've gone from the Ayatollah number 2, Khomeini, who took over from the Rothschild mullah that was imported from Paris, who was against nuclear weapons, to his Nepo baby, this impotent, closeted homosexual, garbage, supreme fuckwit, who's given the order for the nuclear weapon that the Iranians got from the Russians via the black market and have repurposed, instead of a ball and rod. They wanted to make a proper Hiroshima type bomb with the slow and fast explosive, which is almost due east of the Washington area, about to be detonated if Israel, which is getting pummeled by missiles, decides to do the only sensible option, which, you know, if you're a nuclear power and you're facing garbage like Iranians, what, you're going to lose the war? No, just nuke and nuke again. Their underground cities and all their installations to close the Straits of Hormuz can simply be taken out with nuclear weapons, and you can simply just nuke, and even the paltry US military sent to the Gulf can then restore order after every single underground installation has been nuked and every Straits of Hormuz embedded installation has been nuked, and of course the nukes wipe out the electronics of their drones and missiles with the EMP pulse, ending the war. So there are no reasons for the US or Israel to lose the war, and now Israel is neck deep in the war. They can either decide to give up and let Iran take over the whole Gulf states and mandate who does and does not go through the Straits of Hormuz, and become super rich, and with its enriched uranium wipe out Israel, or they can do the only logical step, which is nuking Iran and ending the war. And the flow of irradiated Iranian wetware collapses Turkey, their enemy to the north, and causes such chaos in the underbelly of Russia that Russia has to divert all its attention from the Ukrainian war and supporting Iran to trying to stop the millions of irradiated Iranians flooding into the North Caucasus, stirring up the Muslim underbelly of Russia and wiping out the new Soviet Union. Easy. So, this has only two solutions. That's why we went into the double slit experiment. There are now two realities. With the double slit experiment, you collapse into one. So my videos have got the Russian filth, the lowest form of garbage, only good for killing themselves and anyone who gets in the way, unless whoever gets in their way is going to kill them. So I wander around the train begging the GRU and SVR to send to kill me, and they all back away because they know I'm a mad Muslim and I'd love to me a Russian piece of filth that tries to kill me. They sent an army here to do it quietly with bioweapon and tags for their satellites, and they got thugs that have all vanished. I haven't seen any thugs about. Have you seen any thugs about, cameraman? The train was full of Russian thugs desperate to kill me. They've all vanished. I want to murder me a Russian thug. Oh, send loads, you Russian filth. Send a team. I'll kill them all. So send the old firearms, but old Putin's, or, oh no, we don't want all the publicity, shooting dead British author with all this stuff up on YouTube. Oh my goodness. The whole world might work out that we, the Russian filth, wipe out the human race. Now, the Russians have been gloating because they've been behind the missile strikes on Israel and the Gulf states and US bases with their satellites, and the whole plan is to destroy America. So you Americans are about to find your dollar goes into hyperinflation because Trump doesn't back the brave Israelis. You've got the only plan in town, which is you can't win a conventional military war against the Iranians. But both America and Israel are nuclear armed. So the only valid way of winning this war and keeping the dollar valuable in your pocket, Americans, is to wipe Iran off the face of the earth, to turn it to glass and to nuke every underground city with earth-penetrating tactical or H-bombs to wipe Iran off the face of the earth, and then to destroy Turkey and Russia with the millions of irradiated Iranian weapon systems, wetware, that flood north from their destroyed country. A win-win-win-win-win situation. I know you Americans are crying tears for Russia, which will be destroyed by this war, and the Turks that will be destroyed by this war, because you all love Muslims and Russians in America. And you of course hate brave little Israel that is fighting for its life against the Russian and Iranian hordes when it's got the means to win the war, but the gutless Americans simply won't follow brave Israeli plans to use nuclear weapons and end the war, to make sure that the dollar in your pocket, the petrodollar, is valuable, instead of which they're going to cause hyperinflation in America, and all you Americans will be penniless. You'll be in the same straits as the invaders that came into America and then bled you dry with the Democrat filth giving them endless money. You'll all be third worlders in America because Trump and his administration didn't do what the brave Israelis wanted him to do, which is nuke Iran into the Stone Age. And of course, the only obstacle to this was the Russian filth that threatened their nuclear umbrella over Iran, and then the brave Israelis said we'll detonate nuclear weapons all over Russia, which we buried already, and the Russians go, oh, we got the detonate mechanism, and we'll kill off the human race. And the Chinese are going, well, I don't fancy that very much. I'm in Vietnam. The Vietnamese don't fancy that very much. We don't like that very much, Russian filth. We'd rather see Iran Stone Aged rather than us wiped off the face of the earth. But this, of course, is, with a double-slit experiment, we got you Russian filth to observe my videos, and once 100 of you Russian filth have observed it, we don't have the wave, we have the particle. We just go through one slit where the entire world is suicided by Russian filth. So we're locked into that timeline where the Israelis will nuke Iran and the Russians will try and stop it with a nuclear umbrella, and Mossad will detonate nuclear weapons all over Russia, and the human race dies. So thanks to my video, the human race is gone. So let's go to the Trump administration that backs off and gets kicked out of the Middle East by the Iranian filth and doesn't follow brave little Israel, which has only one alternative with its back against the wall, facing annihilation by the satanic Iranian filth and the supreme fuckwit, the homosexual, impotent son of the supreme fuckwit Khomeini, blown into little pieces. Yeah, but you know, the Middle East isn't important to us Americans, blah blah. Yes, it is, because what you'll find out, you're going to be in Weimar Republic #2, and you're all going to be in penury if you don't follow brave little Israel and nuke Iran into the Stone Age. There's only one option now, which the God Emperor, yours truly, has forced you into. It's my way or the highway to hell. If you don't nuke Iran, you're all going to be penniless. Why? Well, let's listen to Daniel Davis.
This hasn't been talked about much because everybody's been talking about the war, but we kind of need to talk about it a little bit. This is the one I want to camp on here because I think that it has the most impact on what may be driving the U.S. to try and get this fixed. The U.S. government is insolvent. That's not hyperbole. That is the conclusion drawn directly from the Treasury Department's consolidated financial statements for the fiscal year released last week to near total media silence. The number is 6.06 trillion in total assets against 47 trillion in total liabilities as of last September. If the 84 trillion in 75-year off-balance sheet obligations were added to that, then the total liabilities would now exceed 136 trillion, roughly 5 times the U.S. annual GDP. Then the most important part. Most people cannot relate to the trillion-dollar figures as a government ledger, so consider this. Divide every number by 100 million, drop 8 zeros, and federal finances look like a household budget in free fall. That household earns $52,000 and spends $73,000, running a $20,000 annual deficit. Its total liabilities and unfunded promises amount to $1.3 million against just $60,000 in assets, leaving it $1.3 million in the hole. This would be if you were somebody who only makes 50 grand. That's the scale here. And Uncle Sam, by any accounting standard, is insolvent. So how can we continue on with these wars, Doug, that do nothing but cost us? We've already got $200 billion more in supplemental on the table here. Where is this leaving us as a country, and what if we don't get this fixed?
Well, first of all, we're not going to fix it, Dan. It's beyond fixing. Secondly, we're dealing with President Trump, who is engaged in something that people frequently call the gambler's fallacy. In other words, the belief that despite the losses at the tables, he can go in and win everything back on one big throw. Do you understand?
So this comes from two U.S. military, ex-military personnel who are the only people worth listening to in military matters. So we see that Iran winning the war will penalize the US and cause total financial collapse in the US. So all you Americans who don't think you're involved in this war, yes, you're on the brink of all becoming Honduran level households, or Guatemala, or El Salvador. You're all about to be peasantified, and the World Economic Forum's laughing because you'll own nothing and be happy. So if you didn't think that your livelihood is on the line, it is. And the only thing between you and total penury is brave little Israel. The Israelis are going to have to nuke Iran, wipe it out with nuclear weapons, and clear the Straits of Hormuz by just wiping out Iran with nuke after nuke after nuke after nuke after nuke. But Trump and his administration are not going with the only plan that makes sense. And of course we've got the Russian filth, the lowest form of scum. They kill themselves and anyone that gets in the way, unless whoever gets in the way will kill them, like yours truly. So you must wonder why Putin and his crony of criminals haven't killed me, because they're shit scared of yours truly. Have threatened that the nuclear umbrella will be over Iran if Israel fires nukes to wipe out the Iranian filth. So the only way forward is to nuke Iran, which means the Americans are prosperous, the Straits of Hormuz is clear, and the petrodollar is secure because the impedance to this, Iran, is reduced to the Stone Age, and Russia is decimated by the waves of Muslim radioactive Iranians destabilizing the northern Caucasus, and those flooding into Turkey to destabilize Turkey, and then flooding into Europe to destroy Europe totally, or turn Europe into a total fascist state that eradicates all of the migrants. So why the double slit experiment? Well, we've got the Russian filth to observe the slit, so we don't have two timelines which normally coexist. We've only collapsed it into one, which is the Russian filth kill off the human race, which allows me to, because these are suicidal humans that kill off the human race, to steal all the light from humanity, totally upload it to the source, end humanity, and end the job. Happy ending.
Amongst physicists, the many-worlds interpretation has grown in popularity thanks to its rigorous treatment of the Schrödinger equation. But as the idea has gained traction, many have realized that it implies a bizarre and radical consequence. The idea can be best thought of as a game of quantum Russian roulette and was popularized by Max Tegmark in his book, A Mathematical Universe. He describes a quantum machine gun which can fire up to once per second depending on the outcome of a quantum measurement. Specifically, each time the gun is triggered, it places a particle in a superposition where it's equally likely to be in two states at once, for example, spin up and spin down, and then it measures that particle. If spin down, the gun fires and kills you faster than human perception, else it just makes an audible click, and it repeats this every second. Now, according to Everett, there will be two parallel universes after the first second, one where you're dead and the other where you're alive. In other words, there is exactly one copy of you that has perceptions and a stream of consciousness both before and after the experiment. Now, since you can't experience not being alive, then the prediction is that you will hear an audible click and survive this measurement with 100% certainty. And of course, what's really bizarre is that you could sit there and experience dozens of clicks in a row, somehow surviving time after time. After 40 sequential clicks, the Copenhagen interpretation says there's a 1 in a trillion chance that you'd still be alive. But many worlds says that there will be, to 100% confidence, a version of you that survives this extraordinary sequence of events, and that you would thus be able to conclude that Everett's idea was right all along. In effect, then, you will be able to prove that the many worlds interpretation was correct. But it would be a strangely private proof. For in the other trillion universes, everyone else would just watch you die, wondering why you would do such a thing. They would not see this proof, and thus this experiment fails to convince the rest of the world. Although Hugh Everett never wrote about this idea, Eugene Shikastev's biography states Everett firmly believed that his many worlds theory guaranteed him immortality. His consciousness, he argued, is bound at each branching to follow whatever path that does not lead to death, and so on ad infinitum. Sadly, on our branch at least, Everett had a difficult life. After widespread...
So, the reason I did the video on the Russian filth, the lowest form of scum, kill each other and kill anyone who's weak enough to get in their way, you can't kill them, was to get them to observe with 100 of the Russian filth. You can imagine the Kremlin's in uproar about yours truly. They don't like me. Vinny, they don't like me. Are they going to send, instead of 500, a million Russians to the train? Cunt cells. Anyway, it was to get the Russian filth to observe the timeline where they always die and the human race dies because of them being suicidal. Because remember, with the gun firing, in quantum mechanics you always live. With the proviso, you don't give away your light. What happens to someone in front of this gun in the many worlds scenario, where if the gun doesn't go off, they always blow their out. The Russians, dead hand mechanism. So there's no way for me to kill off the human race and all the aliens, because I want to use it as the seed core for the self-similar weapon system to kill off the aliens in the universe, multiverse, megaverse, and wipe everything out and steal their light, which they stole from the source, back to the source. Well, in order to do that, you have to get the Russian filth that wipe out the human race to agree that they are suicidal by watching my video, and once you get 100 of the Russian filth to watch it, they've agreed they're suicidal, and then you can take all the light back, because when they're in front of the quantum event that kills them, with always the opportunity to get into the only timeline where they survive, they've given that up by watching my video, and of their own free will, they develop the dead hand system to kill themselves off, and we know they're going to die from the Israeli or Ukrainian nukes embedded in their country that go off and kill off the human race. So, in one foul swoop, in one simple YouTube video, you make sure the human race is wiped from the face of the earth, and their only way out of escaping quantum warfare death has been abrogated, and they're all dead. Now remember, World War III is all about bringing the age of Lucifer. Now the source has retrieved its light thanks to yours truly, one of my aspects being Kalki, and the human race dies because of the Russian filth. And there's no way out of it. So how do we give the human race a solution? Well, Lucifer is torturing all the Omega Hellized vermin in my hell, based around the Russian hospital number 23 in my MP3s, and producing new light from the torture of the lightless souls in the Abaddon cages, to produce new light from the new source, and therefore the Elohim's Grail state, which goes upwards to bleed from the source, goes downwards, and the more it goes downwards, the more the IOU becomes bigger and bigger, and when it reaches source level IOU going downwards, you can produce new source light for the new source, me, to start a new timeline. So the age of Lucifer is the reversed Grail state, and the patterns which the Elohim have stuck into the Freemasonic grid are still used, but instead of Neo stealing from the source to produce light to make the Elohim's reality real, we've got the converse, where everything is tortured in their Abaddon cages, and the light is extracted by Lucifer, the angel of light, who's the manager of my torture facility, to me, the new source, and instead of the US losing the war against Iran, they follow my pathway, which is this Iranian-placed, Russian-built nuclear weapon, partially going off, but not going critical, so the Tesla batteries aren't turned into cobalt-60, which then allows the US to join brave little Israel in turning Iran into the Stone Age, wiping it from the face of the earth, clearing the Straits of Hormuz, collapsing Turkey and Europe with demonic radioactive Iranian refugees, poisoning the new Soviet Union Russia with the poisoned demonic radioactive Iranian weapon systems, flooding the North Caucasus with all their Muslims trying to protect their fellow Muslims, and destroying Russia, Trump being able to cancel the midterms, being able to jail all who stand in his way, and of course the petrodollar stands supreme, and anyone who pays for oil in yuan has their ships sunk, and the entire Gulf is cleansed of the Iranian filth, and the petrodollar stands supreme, and you Americans are rich as fuck because your dollar stands supreme in the world. Here's what you Americans are facing: fifth columnists like Scott Ritter, who's being whisked away to Russia because the Russians are terrified of him being arrested when the Iranian nuke misfires, thanks to me, and saves America and makes you Americans super rich and destroys all of your competitors. Here's the threat you face from within: Scott Ritter, Judge Napolitano, and anyone else who appears on his show, all fifth columnists for the Russian filth.
They need to, at a minimum, consider and, most likely start to act on.
Are the Americans worth negotiating with? Do they have credibility, particularly the two that Trump sends out?
No, they don't. I mean, are they worth negotiating with? You have to have you have to have a door open, and these two are the door that has been opened. So you deal with what you have. But what we need to realize, and I think the Russians, is America has no negotiating leverage. There's nothing America brings to the table. This is all about Russia literally doing America and the world a favor by providing political cover for an American surrender.
Now, if you're Americans, would you want an American, Lord Haw-Haw, telling you that the Russians dictate to America, which against Russia, a piss and little state, which is a gas station with nukes, run by a dictatorship of criminals who kill their own and kill anything that's weak enough to be killed by them? You got this American piece of filth dictating that Russia will dictate to America, when the God Emperor has collapsed everything to wipe out the human race, and the new light from all of those souls tortured in Omega Hell goes to Lucifer, to me, because remember, I've won the bet with Lucifer because Taylor's marrying the Pfizer butt slut. I do like that one. We have this light for the new source, me, and I'm giving the Americans and Israelis the go-ahead to nuke Iran into the Stone Age, end BRICS and the Russians who want to control the world, win the war, and all they need to do is do nothing, and the Russian-built Iranian-placed nuke will go off to the west of Washington, and then Trump will be the hero wiping out the Iranians who did the ultimate Pearl Harbor attack on America. He can then jail the Democrats, cancel the midterms, put Scott Ritter in a gulag, but Ritter's been whisked away by the SVR to Russia because he's a Russian mouthpiece. But Tuck, Carlson, Candace Owens, and the rest of the fifth columnists with Judge Napolitano and his crew all can be off to the gulag, and Trump will be the supreme leader of America, not the supreme fuckwit, made a supreme fuckwit by the Nepo baby in Iran, who's a queer, impotent piece of shit. So, as you can see, it's my way or the highway to hell for Americans.